Hi everybody, I'm Edana Kiernan, an approved New York State real estate instructor, as well as the broker owner of Vintage American Realty on Long Island in New York. So I cannot believe that it has been so long since I last uploaded a video, and I'm shocked by how often someone still reaches out to me after watching one of my videos. So whether it's a buyer, a seller, or a real estate agent, I really appreciate that you felt comfortable enough to contact me with your questions, and it lets me know that these videos are helping at least some of you. So please continue to do so. I'm seriously always so happy to answer your questions. It is what I do every single day. That being said, I thought that the best video to get started again would be going over the infamous NAR lawsuit that by now I'm sure every real estate agent has heard about, as well as many buyers and sellers. This is probably the number one question that people ask me in my day-to-day, so I know it's on a lot of people's minds. I will try to keep this video as simple and to the point as possible, but I do want to make sure it is thorough enough that there is a total understanding. So last year, there was a famous lawsuit brought about. You may have heard it called the Sitzer-Burnett class action litigation, which was actually started by home sellers in Missouri, but sort of evolved into various other copycat lawsuits. In summary, these home sellers were upset because of how much they paid the buyer's agent on their home sale when they had hired the listing agent. They indicated that they did not feel they totally understood this from the beginning of their transaction and felt that they should only have had to pay their own agent. Now, you may be asking, why is this affecting us in New York or whatever state you're in if this started in another state? Well, that's because the suit was brought against realtors, and the National Association of Realtors, or NAR, is, as the name states, national, so it's nationwide. Therefore, the outcome of the lawsuit affects all realtors in the United States. So one important thing to note is that if you are not a realtor, the judgment actually does not apply to you. In that case, you are a real estate salesperson and not a realtor. Salesperson is a general term for someone who is licensed to assist home buyers and sellers in real estate transactions. And realtors must adhere to a strict code of ethics and are held to a higher standard in their practice. Basically, all realtors are real estate salespersons, but not all salespersons are realtors. This is an important distinction. Moving on. On March 15th of this year, NAR announced it reached a proposed settlement with the plaintiffs, and it will require two major changes that were to be put into effect by August 17th of this year, 2024. These two major changes are: 1, offers of compensation are prohibited on the MLS, and 2, buyer agents must enter into a written representation agreement with their buyers before touring any homes for sale. Now, what exactly does this mean? For the offers of compensation, as realtors, we are all part of some sort of MLS. For our MLS here on Long Island, most of us are in One Key MLS. If you are a member of One Key MLS, your offers of compensation looked like this. It clearly stated what you would be paid if you brought a buyer to the seller, either as a buyer's agent, broker agent, or seller's agent, but usually as a buyer's agent. Having this here was actually the agreement between brokers. If you indicated you were paying a commission for an agent that brought a buyer and their offer was accepted, then went under contract and the deal was brought to closing, this was the guarantee that you would be paid. This is no longer allowed to exist in realtor-owned MLSs, so this field is now gone. Offers of compensation are still permitted to be negotiated and an option pursued off the MLS, so it can be posted on other websites such as an agent's website or the brokerage website, flyers, emails, text between agents, or just negotiated over the phone or however between agents, however it may come about. Just not on a realtor board owned MLS. Another change for our MLS here is that there was never a field for seller's concessions. They have added this field now, and a listing agent can indicate whether or not the seller is offering a concession, provided that the field isn't solely used to communicate buyer-broker commission, as that would go against the rules of the suit. Now, to go over the second change of buyer representation agreements being required, prior to this, it really was dependent on the area you worked. Some areas, buyer rep agreements were very common practice, and others they were not. Here on Long Island, they were certainly not unheard of, but they were not very common. It was up to the individual agent whether or not they would require one from their buyers. Then in 2022, New York State required brokers to create a standardized operating procedure for their brokerages, and this meant that the broker had to decide the protocol, and whatever they decided, every single agent in the brokerage had to do. So you couldn't have one agent requiring their buyers sign a buyer rep agreement and then another agent not having them signed. This settlement, though, now makes it a requirement for all realtors to have signed by their buyers if they're hired as a buyer's agent. Furthermore, the buyer rep agreement has to provide these 4 things. 1, the amount or rate of compensation that the realtor will receive or how the amount will be determined. 2, the amount must be specific and not open-ended. So for example, it cannot say whatever amount the seller is offering buyer's agents. 3, when your buyer does get an offer accepted and proceeds to contract, the amount you are paid at closing as a buyer's agent cannot exceed the amount or the rate in your buyer-broker agreement. For example, if your buyer-broker agreement says that the buyer will pay you 1.5% and they purchase a house that offers 2% to buyer's agents, you are not allowed to collect that extra 0.5% difference. And lastly, it must contain a conspicuous statement that broker fees and commissions are fully negotiable and not set by law, which has always been the case anyway. So those are the terms of the settlement that are now in effect. If you want my 2 cents on the topic, I was honestly very surprised that this lawsuit went anywhere. I'm not sure how listing contracts look in Missouri or really anywhere but here in New York, but it's very clear here who you, the seller, are paying. If I can just show you this screenshot. As you can see, the top, it states that the owner is paying their listing broker a total commission of 4%. And this is only for educational purposes, it's just an example. Then when you go further down, it breaks it down, again, very clearly, and states that the owner understands the commission will be shared by the listing broker with the cooperating broker. And it shows buyer, broker, and seller's agents. And in this particular example, we can see that the listing agent is going to share the commission in half and give 2% to the buyer's agent who brings a buyer and to the closing table. Now, this is just a small excerpt from a full listing contract, but of course, at the end of every contract, there is a signature. So the seller would sign at the end of the document, but if you look over to the right on our document here, it actually requires an additional initial from the seller to indicate that they have read and understand this specific commission section. So I believe it has always been very clear. To go even further, the seller agreed to pay a total commission to the seller's agent. So what the seller agent does with it beyond that, I think really should not be anyone's concern. If anything, it shows that they are really wanting to help sell your house and are willing to share the commission to get that done, which I personally would definitely prefer as a seller rather than them doing what they can to keep the whole commission to themselves. And for the buyer's agent requirement to have a buyer-broker agreement signed, this actually isn't as huge of a change as many seem to think it is. While now we are required to have it signed, it shouldn't really change what was done in our everyday practice. It's always been the case that if a seller did not pay the buyer agent what the buyer agent charges, it was the responsibility of the buyer to do so and make up that difference. It was historically rare to have this happen, though. Unfortunately, I do think that with these new changes, this will happen more and more. The new buyer-broker agreements indicate that the broker will always attempt to collect their broker fee from the seller, but now that there is no agreement in place on the MLS anymore, I think it creates a lot of confusion and less transparency, and that fewer sellers will do so. I've met with several sellers since this went into effect, and I do continue to encourage them to offer commission to buyer's agents, as I truly believe this will yield more showings and higher offers. Essentially, by offering out commission to buyer's agents, they will, in my experience, always receive more offers that more than make up for any difference in perceived savings. So in other words, they will yield more money in their sale, even with paying the buyer's agent, than they would have if they did not pay the commission, because they will receive more offers and they will be much higher offers, covering that amount of the commission anyway. And I have not seen this to not be true yet in my deals and in my agent's deals in the past 2 months since it's gone into effect. And I think that about covers it. I hope you found this video to be informative, and please feel free to comment below or reach out to me anytime with questions or concerns. I am hoping to upload a new video every week from this point forward, so I would also love to hear what type of video or topics you'd like to see covered, whether you're a realtor, home buyer, seller, or just someone who's really interested in real estate. So if you found this video helpful, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real estate tips and industry updates. I'll see you in the next video.